The 17th book of the Hebrew Bible reads like a high-stakes political thriller. It is a story of hidden identities, palace assassination plots, and a secret queen working from the shadows to stop a genocide. The setting is the 5th century BCE in the city of Susa. This was the capital of the Persian Empire, the largest and most powerful empire the world had ever seen at that time. At the top of it all sat King Ahasuerus, a monarch identified in modern sources as Xerxes I. The trouble started during a lavish 180-day royal banquet. The king, deep into the wine, commanded his wife, Queen Vashti, to appear and display her beauty to his guests. She refused. Infuriated, the king immediately banished her from the court. Vashti's sudden removal created a power vacuum at the center of the world's largest empire. In a royal court filled with ambitious advisors and plotting officials, the stage was set for a dangerous political game where one wrong move meant death. To find a replacement for Vashti, the king held an empire-wide beauty pageant to select a new queen from the hundreds of women brought to his palace. Among these women was Esther. She was an orphaned Jewish woman raised by her older cousin, Mordecai. Esther won the crown and the king's favor, but on Mordecai's strict advice, she kept her Jewish heritage a complete secret. Meanwhile, Mordecai spent his days sitting near the palace gates. One day, he overheard 2 royal guards quietly plotting to assassinate the king. Mordecai passed the warning to Esther, who informed the king. The guards were stopped, the king's life was saved, and Mordecai's deed was recorded in the royal chronicles, though he received no reward for his loyalty. Esther and Mordecai were now embedded in the most powerful court on earth, but their hidden identities made them highly vulnerable. In a palace fueled by paranoia and pride, they were surrounded by enemies who could use their heritage against them. The primary threat arrived with the promotion of Haman. He was a cunning advisor elevated to second in command over the entire empire, and he demanded that everyone at the palace gates bow down in submission to him. But Mordecai refused. Because of his Jewish beliefs, he would not bow to a human official. When Haman realized Mordecai was a Jew, his anger boiled over into a furious, disproportionate wrath. Haman decided that punishing Mordecai alone was not enough. He manipulated the king into signing a royal decree, one that could not be revoked, to annihilate every Jewish person living within the empire. To pick the specific day for the execution, Haman rolled ancient dice known as Pur. The dice landed on the 13th day of the month of Adar, setting a ticking clock for exactly 11 months later. The personal grudge of one unchecked official had weaponized the entire legal and military apparatus of the empire against an innocent population. Mordecai sent a message to Esther, telling her she must use her position to intervene. But approaching the king uninvited carried an automatic death penalty under Persian law, unless the monarch extended his golden scepter. Esther chose to risk her life for her people, declaring, "If I perish, I perish." She stepped into the light and approached the king's throne. The king welcomed her, but Esther used a clever opening strategy. Instead of pleading for her life immediately, she invited the king and Haman to a private banquet, and then delayed further by inviting them to a second banquet the next day. That very night, the story reached its midpoint pivot. The king could not sleep. To pass the time, he had the royal chronicles read to him, and he realized Mordecai had never been rewarded for saving his life years earlier. The next morning, Haman arrived at the palace to demand Mordecai's execution. Instead, the king forced Haman to publicly honor Mordecai through the streets, dressed in royal robes. This humiliating reversal for Haman acts as the mirror image pivot for the entire story. It is the exact moment the momentum shifts from the villain's control to his victims. The tension peaked at Esther's second banquet. When the king asked her what she desired, she finally revealed her hidden Jewish identity. She begged the king to spare her life and her people, pointing directly at this wicked Haman as the mastermind behind the plan to destroy them. The king exploded in rage. He sentenced Haman to be executed immediately, using the very gallows Haman had just finished building in his own courtyard to kill Mordecai. While the villain's own trap became his sudden undoing, the legal threat to the Jewish people remained. Because the king's original decree could not be revoked, the empire was still legally bound to attack the Jews on the 13th of Adar. Esther and a newly promoted Mordecai used a legal loophole to save the day. They issued a counter-decree, granting the Jews the right to arm and defend themselves against any attackers. When the fateful day arrived, the Jewish people successfully defended themselves, surviving the empire-wide threat and thriving in exile. To memorialize this rescue, the Jewish festival of Purim was established, named after the pour, or the fateful dice Haman rolled to determine their end. This story is recorded on the Megillah, or the Scroll of Esther. That celebration continues today. During the reading of the scroll, Jewish communities gather to celebrate their survival, often with costumes and noisemakers used to drown out the name of Haman. The Book of Esther endures as a masterclass in how individual courage and clever strategy can alter the course of history. It proves that stepping up in exactly the right moment can save an entire people.